The night shift had always been quiet at St. Mary's Hospital, the kind of silence that carried the soft rhythm of heart monitors and whispered prayers. Among the nurses, Emily Carter, 27, was known for something rare. She didn't just treat patients, she felt for them. While others moved swiftly between rooms, Emily lingered, listening to stories from those who felt forgotten. Her favorite patient was Mr. Henderson, an elderly man battling late-stage cancer. His wife had passed away years ago, and no one had visited him in months. Most nights, Emily would sit by his bedside after rounds, holding his hand as he spoke about his younger days, his garden, and the sound of rain he missed so much. She smiled, though her heart ached every time he said, "I guess this is my last home now, Emily." Her co-workers often teased her gently. "You're too emotional for this job," they'd say. But Emily would just shrug. "Sometimes," she replied softly, "people need more than medicine." There was a quiet purity about her, no rush for recognition, no desire for reward, just an instinct to make others feel human again, even in sterile hospital walls. As the clock struck midnight and the fluorescent lights hummed above her, Emily checked Mr. Henderson's vitals one more time. His breathing was weak. She sensed the storm coming, but not the one that would soon turn her life upside down. The storm outside began to rumble as Emily entered Mr. Henderson's room that night. The rain tapped gently against the window, a sound that seemed to echo his labored breathing. His eyes were half open, distant, staring somewhere beyond the ceiling, as if already watching the stars. "Emily," he whispered, voice trembling like the flicker of the monitor. "Would you stay a little longer tonight?" She nodded, pulling a chair beside him. His hand was cold but searching, and she took it without hesitation. Machines beeped softly in the background, but time felt suspended. The air was filled with the scent of antiseptic and something deeper, finality. He tried to speak again, but coughed weakly. I don't want to go alone." Emily's throat tightened. Her eyes glistened as she leaned closer, her voice steady but soft. "You're not alone, Mr. Henderson. I'm here." She reached over and wrapped her arms around him, resting his frail head gently against her shoulder. It was a simple human act, pure, instinctive, and kind. His breathing slowed, then steadied, then stopped. For a long moment, Emily didn't move. She just held him, feeling the weight of both life and loss settle into her arms. A single tear slid down her cheek as she whispered, "Rest now, you're free." When she finally looked up, a shadow in the doorway caught her eye. Another nurse, frozen in silence, watching everything. The next morning began like any other at St. Mary's, but beneath the calm surface, something had shifted. Emily arrived early, her eyes still heavy from the night before. She placed a small white flower on Mr. Henderson's now empty bed, a quiet goodbye that only she would understand. As she turned to leave, the head nurse entered, her expression unusually tense. "Emily, the director wants to see you," she said flatly. In the hospital's administrative office, the atmosphere was cold and sterile. Two supervisors sat across from her, their faces stern, a clipboard lying between them. "Emily Carter," one began, "we received a report from a staff member about your conduct last night." Emily blinked, confused. "My conduct?" The words that followed hit her like ice water. "You embraced a patient in his final moments. That violates hospital protocol on physical boundaries. We can't overlook it." She tried to explain how frightened Mr. Henderson had been, how he had begged not to die alone, but the more she spoke, the more detached their faces became. "It's not personal," the administrator said, his tone rehearsed. "It's policy." Her heart pounded. "Policy?" she repeated, her voice breaking. He was dying. He needed comfort, not rules. But the decision had already been made. They handed her a dismissal form and asked her to clear her locker by noon. As she stepped out of the office, the sterile air felt suffocating. Around her, colleagues whispered, avoiding her eyes. In a place meant for healing, compassion had somehow become the crime. The world outside the hospital felt colder than Emily remembered. The clouds hung low, the air heavy with drizzle, as if the sky itself mourned with her. She walked slowly down the hallway, clutching a small cardboard box filled with her belongings. A stethoscope, a coffee mug that said "Compassion Heals," and a faded photo of her nursing school graduation. Her co-workers stood scattered near the nurses' station, their voices hushed. Some avoided eye contact, afraid guilt might spill through their silence. Others gave small sympathetic nods, but no one spoke. The hospital, once a place where she poured her heart into every shift, now felt like a cage she was being released from, or abandoned by. As she reached the glass doors, she turned back one last time. The sterile white walls and buzzing monitors blurred through her tears. "Goodbye, Mr. Henderson," she whispered under her breath. "I hope you know I tried." Outside, the rain began to fall harder. Emily walked through it without opening her umbrella. Cars passed, people hurried by, no one noticing the young nurse who had just lost everything for an act of love. She sat on a bench near the bus stop, clutching her box as if it held her whole life. That night, in her small apartment, she sat by the window in silence. The news played faintly in the background, but she didn't listen. She just stared into the rain, wondering if kindness had a place left in this world. 2 days passed. Emily hadn't left her apartment, except to grab a cup of coffee from the corner cafe. She felt invisible, a nurse without a hospital, a healer without purpose. Her phone remained silent. No one from St. Mary's called, no messages from colleagues. Just stillness, but the stillness didn't last. That evening her phone buzzed repeatedly, dozens of notifications lighting up the dark room. Confused, she unlocked it and froze. Trending. Now, nurse fired for hugging a dying man. Hospital faces. Outrage. A video was attached, shaky, filmed secretly through the half-open door. It showed Emily kneeling beside Mr. Henderson's bed, whispering to him, then wrapping him in that final hug. The caption read, "She broke the rules to be human." The post had exploded across social media. Millions of views, thousands of comments. People shared their own stories of nurses, of loved ones dying alone, of how the world had forgotten compassion. This woman is a hero. She should be running that hospital. If that's a crime, we're all doomed. By morning, news channels picked it up. Talk shows debated her firing. Hashtags spread. Hug of humanity. Justice for Emily. Emily watched in disbelief. The world that had turned its back on her was suddenly defending her louder than she ever could. Still, she felt uneasy, because somewhere behind those hospital walls, powerful people were watching too. And one man in particular was about to discover something that would change everything. At the top floor of St. Mary's Hospital, Richard Henderson, the CEO, sat in his office, scrolling through a wave of angry emails and news alerts. Headlines plastered every screen. Hospital fires nurse for compassion. CEO silent amid viral scandal. His assistant stood nervously by the door. "Sir, the board wants your statement by noon." "The press is—" "Leave it," he interrupted sharply, rubbing his temples. "Just leave it." He clicked on the viral video and for the first time watched the moment the world was talking about. The nurse's soft voice, her trembling hands, the way she held the dying man with such quiet dignity. His throat tightened as he noticed the name tag on the patient's chart beside the bed. Arthur Henderson. He froze. The room spun for a second. That name. His father's name. Richard leaned forward, pausing the video. His eyes darted from the footage to the framed photo on his desk. His father standing tall beside him years ago, before they stopped speaking. He had missed his father's final call, missed every chance to make peace. And now a stranger had given his father something he never did, comfort in his last breath. He sat back, guilt washing over him like a tide. For the first time in years, the powerful CEO felt small. "Find her," he said quietly. "The nurse in that video. I want to talk to her. Today." Emily's phone rang early the next morning. The number was unfamiliar, official, corporate. She hesitated before answering, her voice still hoarse from sleepless nights. "Miss Carter, this is St. Mary's Administration. The CEO would like to meet you personally today." Her heart skipped. For a moment, she thought it was another cruel joke from the internet. "Is this about the video?" she asked quietly. "Yes, ma'am," the voice replied. "Mr. Henderson wants to see you in his office at noon." When she arrived, the hospital felt different, hushed, reverent, almost apologetic. Staff who once avoided her gaze now looked at her with quiet respect. As she stepped out of the elevator, she caught her reflection in the glass doors, tired, anxious but strong. The CEO stood as she entered, his expression conflicted, pride, guilt, grief all tangled together. "Emily," he began, his voice low, "I watched the video. The man you held that night was my father." Emily froze. The words hit harder than she expected. The silence that followed was thick with emotion neither of them could quite name. Richard's voice broke slightly. "You gave him peace when I couldn't. For that I owe you more than I can ever repay." He stepped forward, eyes glistening. "You're reinstated immediately. And I'm establishing a new policy, one that values compassion above procedure." For the first time in days, Emily smiled faintly. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. "I just did what felt human." The morning light poured through St. Mary's Hospital, warm and golden, as Emily stepped through the front doors. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't carrying the weight of guilt, only quiet strength. Every eye followed her as she walked the halls she once left in tears. The same walls that had witnessed her pain now echoed something else, respect. In the lobby, the press had gathered. Beside her stood CEO Richard Henderson, no longer just a man in power, but a son who had learned what compassion truly meant. "Today," he said into the microphones, "we correct a mistake. From this day forward, no act of kindness will ever be punished here again." When it was Emily's turn to speak, her voice trembled but carried warmth. "Sometimes," she said, "it takes losing everything to remember why we began. Healing isn't just about medicine, it's about humanity. And if I had to choose again, I'd still choose that hug." The audience fell silent before the applause swelled. Deep, heartfelt, and healing. That evening, Emily visited the empty room where Mr. Henderson had taken his last breath. She placed a single white flower on the window ledge, whispering, "You're remembered, both of you." As she turned to leave, sunlight glimmered across the plaque that read, "In memory of Arthur Henderson, whose final moments reminded us that kindness is the greatest medicine." If this story touched your heart, don't let kindness fade into silence. Subscribe for more stories that remind us what being human truly means. And share this one, so the world remembers. Compassion is never a mistake.